Hey, it's Friday afternoon, 3 o'clock on the East Coast, noon on the West Coast. And hey, it's Saturday in Australia. Where else do you want to be but right here? Sales Logi Podcast. Hello, Meridith. How you doing?
I am good. I am ready for the weekend, although it always seems a bit like Groundhog Day, doing the same thing over and over again in the age of COVID.
I was sharing that with somebody today. I was talking with the VP of sales. We were getting some dates, on the calendar for some stuff. And I said, it's just and he laughed. He said, that's the line he uses every morning. He says, it is Groundhog Day. And he actually was keeping a calendar from the first day that they closed down their office. I wish I could remember the day, but yeah, he said, it's just bizarre. It's weird. So anyway, but hey, Meridith Elliott Powell, I'm Mark Hunter, the sales hunter. This is Sales Logi, where we talk about kind of things in sales. But let's talk about some stuff, what's going on with you, and I'll share. And then after a few minutes, we'll kind of do the show, if that sounds good. Sound good?
That sounds great. Yeah. I had a really good week. I kicked off a brand new consulting job, pretty exciting stuff with a brand new client. We're really going to be getting in and doing some sales training for their team. And then I did an interesting keynote where I had the opportunity to do a panel discussion with really more of an interview with a really interesting gentleman who has been the CEO for franchise organizations such as Subway, McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts, and a few others. And just getting his perspective on leadership, talent, and getting through challenging economic times. It's been a good week, a busy week, but a good week. What about you, Mark? What have you been up to?
That's good. Well, actually, this morning I did a photo shoot. Yes, I know, with this unbelievable face. Did a 2-hour shoot outdoors. Fortunately, we started about 7:45. We got done before it got too hot, but that worked well. But had a very interesting week. Yeah, it's been crazy. The client conversations and so forth. And then kind of one of those weird things. In fact, it kind of fits into the topic of what we are talking about. I've had a client that was kind of ghosting me for the last several months. And I've been really trying to get in touch with him. He reached out, boom, we're back on the calendar for next Thursday. And he was funny. He said, I absolutely apologize. We've been slammed. We actually had to acquire another company. We had to spin off another division, all kinds of other things. I've been meaning to get back in touch with you. But boy, I am so glad that I was just persistent and staying in touch with him. And we're back up and running. So yeah, it's been a good week, but boy, it sure does seem like every week just kind of runs into the same thing over and over again. What's on your calendar for next week? You're working on a book, right?
Yeah, I got to finish up. My book next week. In fact, it's more than a book. It's a whole new brand. It's a whole new passion of mine and what I'm really speaking about more than anything. So I'm going to finish that up, and then I kick off a second consulting client, and I'm going in for a 3-day deep dive with them. So it's going to be a busy week next week as well. But I did want to tell you that I think you're going to be amused. I have had all kinds of computer problems this week, and I know everybody knows that Zoom crashed earlier this week, but I'm kind of blaming it on the fact that it's on overload, that all the kids have gone back to school. And yeah, absolutely. So Mark, I went back to doing things the old-fashioned way, and I pretty much, in the midst of everything else I've had going on, I've made all of my calls via the telephone this week, and it has been quite successful. No video, just telephone.
And you know what? The telephone does work quite well, because for some calls, they actually can be really more meaningful as a telephone conversation. Teams or whatever you want to use. Yeah. I'm really going back to more and more telephone, and I like it. I was going to share with you a Zoom story. It was Monday morning when Zoom kind of crashed the worldwide, and it was funny because I had a 5 a.m. Zoom call with a client in Switzerland. Went great on Zoom, and then at 8:30 I had another Zoom event, and no go. It had crashed, but we were able to revert. We did the event by way of the telephone. And you know what? It worked. It worked fine. So, we'll get through it. So anyway.
That's right. Overcome and adapt.
Yeah. Now, do you want to tease us with the title of your next book?
Yeah. I'd love to. It's Thrive, Turning Uncertainty to Competitive Advantage. And, most people think that I'm kind of timing the book for now, but the truth is I started researching the book a couple of years ago. And in essence, what the book is about is I studied 9 companies that have been in business since late 1700s, early 1800s, and they are still in business, thriving today. And Mark, as you know, I was just trying to write a book about helping people get through an economic downturn. I sure didn't see the pandemic happen. But these 9 companies that are still thriving in business today have come through world wars, economic depression, recession, and they have even survived a pandemic. So this book is basically their story, and then the 9-step formula learned from doing the research that if you apply to your business is going to position you to succeed, whether it's a pandemic, government regulation, or new competition. Whatever your uncertainty is, this sort of makes you bulletproof.
That's neat because I've known you for a number of years, and you first told me about this book several years ago. And so, it isn't something you just came up, wow, we're suddenly in the middle of coronavirus. Let's write a book on Thrive. No, you've been working on this thing for a long time. It's kind of like when I came out with the book, A Mind for Sales. Everybody said, how did you write this book so quickly? I said, no, I had really written it about a year and a half ago. And the timing just all worked out for it right now. But I think what that says is that, when you're willing to look far enough down the road, no, we can't determine what is actually going to happen tomorrow. But it changes your thinking. And I credit you because you're able to just think, what could happen? And that's what you wrote the book around. And then boom, it comes into pass. And it's kind of the same way that I wrote the book A Mind for Sales. I knew it was going to be a good book. The timing just worked out perfect. So anyway, but
it's funny. It's funny like that. I think that if I think something our listeners can take from this is that I know you came up with A Mind for Sales and I came up with Thrive, basically from listening to people. What are they talking about? What are they thinking about? And I think that we know on an intuitive level that big change is coming even before we know it, intellectually. And I think that when we really listen to our customers, whether you're trying to sell a product or trying to write a book, if you're listening, it automatically positions you to be one step ahead and see the change coming before it happens.
Yeah. And not only do you listen, but I know you read a tremendous amount. I mean, you're very much up on what's happening out there. And again, I think that's, and I do the same thing. You try to be as learned as possible. In fact, we should probably tell the audience that's one of the other things we have going on right now, and that is the Business Leadership Roundtable. We haven't really talked about it on the Sales Logic podcast, but the Business Leadership Roundtable and that whole white paper that is really getting some incredible reviews from CEOs and comments and people. So tell people about the website that they can go to.
It's businessleadershiproundtable.com. You just need to go to businessleadershiproundtable.com. And if you go there, you can get a copy of this white paper. And it's a white paper that Mark and I wrote with Sam Richter and Mary Kelly. And you put the 4 of us together, and that's a pretty good combination. But it is basically entitled The State of American Business in the Age of COVID, Challenges, Opportunities, and Solutions. So basically, when you go through the paper, it's divided into 6 sections, the 6 areas that you really need to understand fundamentally, whether you work for a large corporation or a small business. We basically outlined the biggest challenges companies are facing, the biggest opportunities they've got, and then the solutions, very, very practical to-dos that you need to walk away with. And the good news is white paper is free. All you need to do is go to businessleadershiproundtable.com. You can just get a copy, get your free download there.
And it seems like everybody comes back with a comment as to how much they like it, how much they appreciate it. So, it must be really resonating. The number of CEOs I have passed it out to and have gotten comments back have been great. But anyway, hey, we should probably jump into the Sales Logic podcast, right? So maybe if our producer, the man behind the screen, You never see them. But Micah, if you want to go ahead and hit the whatever, let's start the show. When we prospect with integrity, we will get customers who have integrity. Integrity is the foundation from which everything is built on.
You better understand value. But at the end of the day, sales is a relationship business. It is a people business. It is an emotional business.
Who has made a prospecting call today?
This is Sales Logic.
Most people refer to VanillaSoft as the solution. It's the solution to ensure sales reps make the right number of attempts for every lead across all channels, including email, social, and the phone. It's the solution to serve the rep the next best lead every single time. You need to get your solution at vanillasoft.com.
All right. Welcome to Sales Logic, the podcast where we dive in to the strategies, we discuss the techniques, we give you everything you need to know to well sell logically. I'm Meridith Elliott Powell, and I'm here with my co-host,
Mark Hunter, the Sales Hunter. Good afternoon, Meredith. Great to have you for another show.
Yeah, it's exciting. Mark, why don't you tell everybody what's on board for today?
We got quite a few things. We got actually 4 things that we do every show. We kind of go through a topic. We have a question that comes in from you, the audience. We do a lightning round, and we kind of highlight a book. Now, hey, I should really throw this out right now. If you have a question, want you to jump out to saleslogicpodcast.com, leave us a question, or just go out to social media, leave a question and hashtag SalesLogic. And maybe next week, your question will be the one that we answer. But that's really what this show is all about. It's about just kind of giving logical ideas to sales challenges. And let me tell you something. There's a few sales challenges out there right now. But hey, what's the biggest challenge you faced or you've heard people face in the last week?
The biggest thing that I'm hearing right now is really making that transition to really selling virtually and selling effectively. I feel like people have gone through their low-hanging fruit, and now they're really into trying to get new prospects and things. And how do you onboard brand new salespeople, and how do you connect and build relationships virtually with customers that you've never met before?
That is so true. I was talking with a VP of sales today, and he shared with me, he says, biggest problem I'm facing right now is my salespeople are chasing shiny objects. They're so desperate for business because the verticals that they normally work in are just not functioning right now. And they're off chasing. It says, got to keep them focused. There's business if we stay in very specific lanes. And wow, that's so common for salespeople just to go sideways right now. But hey, to keep us from going sideways, we should probably jump in and start things off with the question. So I'm going to go ahead and share. Well, let me go ahead and share the topic. The topic we're going to be talking about is how everyone talks about having perfect customers, but what's the process of creating and keeping them? So with that, now let's jump back to the question. The question we have, it comes from Peter in Atlanta. Peter says, I have customers who have been saying they're going to buy since before COVID and still nothing. What am I doing wrong? Gee, Peter, you and everyone else have got this same question. So great question, Meredith. Why don't you jump in first? Let's give Peter some advice.
I love this question, and Mark, I think that you're going to be perfectly situated to answer it, given that you started this off by talking about the fact that you had a client who quote unquote ghosted you, who has now come back into the to the fold. Peter, first, I want to change your mindset. It isn't that you are doing, it's not that you're doing anything wrong, but there's a couple of things we want to go back in and look at. Number one is I really want to ask if you are taking time every single month to reflect on your pipeline. And what I mean by that is just taking a little bit of quiet time every 30 days and looking very realistically at your pipeline. Because what I don't know about these customers right now is I don't know if these customers are really in your customer avatar, if they fit your highly qualified perfect customer profile. I also don't know how many criteria they meet for you to actually close the sale. For example, you could be chasing business where you're not necessarily talking to the decision maker, where somebody told you that they want to buy from you, but they don't necessarily have the budget. You might not have qualified the need. They may be in lukewarm phase, but they're not in urgent phase. So the first thing I want you to do is to go back and do basically a sales autopsy and see, and when you look at these customers, what are the reasons you really believe they're not buying now? And then we can start to separate them into hot prospects, lukewarm prospects, or maybe prospects you need to nurture along the way. What about you, Mark?
Well, that's so true, because you don't know what you don't know, because you don't know what you don't know. We were talking in the pre-show about the customer that had, so to speak, ghosted me. Now, I knew I was dealing with the qualified decision makers, the VP of sales. They've bought from me before. We had kind of got into a holding pattern, but I wasn't giving up. But I wasn't giving up and coming back to him and say, I'm checking in. Every time I was communicating with him, I was bringing new value. And today, suddenly, he responded. We got time on the calendar. And why he was not responding was not because of anything on my end. It was because of factors and issues going on in his company. You see, sometimes what happens is you have to realize it's not in your control. But I wasn't going to give up. I kept bringing them new value. But here's what's so key, and this is what I think every salesperson has to keep in mind. You can wind up spending all of your time just chasing stuck stuff, and it literally sucks all of your day. So you got to make sure, and I love what you said, kind of do an autopsy and look what's in there. I always say I'm going to take all my stuck customers and I'm going to break them down and put them into very specific verticals. So what I do for one, I can do for another. What I do for these two, I can do for another one. In other words, it makes my time be more worthwhile. And when I do that, I actually have the ability to be reaching out to more customers faster with actually better content, better delivery. Because you know what? I really think if that customer, and you use the word avatar, lines up with who, the avatar you want to be going after. And I say this, it has to line up with at least 70% of the attributes of your avatar. If it doesn't line up with at least 70% of the attributes of the avatar you've said is your perfect customer, cut them loose. Move on.
Yeah, Mark, you're making such a great point there, because the importance of moving on is something I think that we as sales professionals, I think one thing I love about us is we're so excited by the hunt, right? I mean, like rejection is something we get excited about, just want to come, go stronger to try to get the sale. But every time you say yes to chasing a prospect, you're saying no to chasing another prospect, and a prospect that could be better qualified, have a higher sense of need. At the same time, Mark said something really important about his client that ghosted him for a while. People are busy. They have a lot going on in their lives. I had a client just last month that we were right in the middle of planning something, and he had to put his mother into a nursing home, and then they got crazy with trying to decide whether they were going to do virtual school with their kids or get their kids back, in the classroom. And all of a sudden, while he wanted to move forward on our project, it just wasn't his hottest priority. And you've got to understand that sometimes when you're being ghosted, it's not necessarily about you. But again, if I were going to give you one tip to take, it would go back and do the autopsy. Spend the time every month really reflecting and asking yourself, have you qualified this prospect? Do you know enough to really qualify them as an A? And if you have, and they're not buying, understand it may not be about you, and you've got to nurture that lead along. even though especially in the age of COVID, we're not controlling the buying cycle. If at any point people don't like us, don't feel like they trust us, they'll move on and buy our product from somebody else. So this is a nurturing relationship, and treat it that way.
That's good. Hey, with that, we should probably move into the topic of the day, but we got that new piece where we're talking about a book. And you've got the book this week, and I know you've read it and I've read it. We know the author, great guy. So what's the name of the book?
It is, can you see it? The Cult of
Yes.
the Customer by Shep Hyken. I liked it so much. I've actually read this book twice, and I've got another one I want to talk about on this show that I've actually read twice. But the premise of this is basically it's not enough to really just satisfy customers in today's environment. You've got to create people who really become passionate about your organization and really define you as very different by the experience that you're providing. I loved it too because it's a practical read. It's an easy read. You can see it's not that book, but Shep really dives into everything you really need to understand to truly create a cult following for your business, which is going to grow your business in spades.
What made the book great for me is in the back of the book are all the worksheets, all the templates. I mean, he has got so many hands-on tools that you can really use to not only measure customer satisfaction, but how do you create more of it and so forth. So it really is. And in fact, I reached out to Shep after I read the book. I said, Shep, man, you gave away the farm. I mean, you gave away everything. Yeah. And he said, well, that's how I create great customers. I give it all away. And it's like, wow, it is a great book. So Cult of the Customer by Shep, S-H-E-P, Hyken, H-Y-K-E-N. And he is a really good guy.
Yeah. And you can find it at hyken.com or on Amazon.com. But if you are challenged at all with any customer service issues, or you're just looking for a way to differentiate yourself in the marketplace, really, really recommend this book. Great read.
That's great. Okay, with that, let's jump into the topic. The topic for today. Everyone talks about having perfect customers. Perfect customers. What's the process to creating and keeping them? Meridith, the floor is yours.
Well, I love the fact that you've said the process to getting them and keeping them, because that really is the goal. I mean, far too often we focus on trying to get the perfect customer, but you want to retain them and deepen that relationship. So I will get to that later as we go on. But I think if you want perfect customers, and I would define a perfect customer as somebody that brings a smile to your face. You enjoy working with them. They enjoy working with you. They love your products and services. They're your champions. They refer you to other people. They never quibble about your price, and they really look to you as a resource. But if you want those types of customers, you've got to start out by defining them. I'll go back to that client avatar piece. Is that everybody has a type. I mean, Mark and I are both in the sales space, but the customers that gravitate to him and the customers that gravitate to me, they're different. So you've got to define who's your niche, who's your type, who is your ideal. If you want to attract them, you need to begin by knowing who they are.
Well, and that really builds on the whole thing that you get customers who are like you. I wrote about this in my book, how, when people sit there and say, oh, we have sucky customers, we have lousy customers, we have bad customers. I go, well, you know what? Chances are that's the persona that you exude. We really attract, I'm always talking about selling with integrity, and I always hate using that word because I just hate using it. But when you sell with integrity, demonstrate integrity, you tend to attract customers who have integrity. And the whole idea about creating and keeping great customers is by you treating them in the same manner that they will end up treating you. And really, the example I love to use is Southwest Airlines. Okay, I get it. We're not flying that much anymore. But if you think about it, How do you get upset at a Southwest flight attendant when they're so nice? How do you get upset? Right. So it's amazing. We create the customers, and we create the loyalty. We create the following by who we are.
Yeah. I also think that if you want perfect customers, you've got to work on becoming a perfect salesperson. And a perfect salesperson means that, basically your customers are going to treat you kind of like what Mark just said on how you treat them. So if you want customers who come back to you for repeat business, if you want customers who give you referrals, then you need to be that type of salesperson who's checking in with them, who's really one step ahead of their needs, who make sure that they're so well taken care of that it's easy for them to see the difference between you and every other customer, every other sales rep they work with, and giving them reasons to brag about you. But you think about the fact of once you understand who your perfect customer is and how you want that customer to treat you, then you need to say, what am I doing to earn those things? If I want repeat business, what am I doing to get repeat business? If I want referrals, what am I doing to get referrals? If I don't want price to be an issue, what am I doing to get price off the table? So really judge yourself according to those steps so that it's easy for them to be a perfect customer because you're answering their every question along the way.
And you do that by putting the customer first. Again, it's so easy to view, and I've used this example before. It's easy to view customers as if they were a bowling pin. Your objective is just to knock them down and take their money and move on to the next sale. But when you treat them as people, and you really truly understand what are they trying to accomplish, it is amazing how the customer begins to pick that up. The customer begins to sense that. The customer begins to see that. And then they begin, then they trust you. Trust is a two-way street. Great customers, great salespeople do just kind of go together. I mean, I've rarely seen a lousy salesperson and a great customer. I just don't see that very often because a great customer is not going to stick around. And so trust becomes a two-way street, but you have to be willing to go the extra mile. Now, going the extra mile does not mean giving away the farm. Going the extra mile means just listening to them and understanding where they're coming from and looking downstream, looking upstream. How are you putting the customer's interests before yours? And when you do, picks up on that. They sense that. And that's how you wind up keeping that. I mean, I'll give you a quick example. I was talking to a sales person this morning. I've had nothing but sales calls all day today. And he was saying that he took a piece of business that he's not really actively out looking for sales, but took a business from a competing customer. And the only reason they did is because the customer said, you at least acknowledge us. You treat us with respect. We're going to give you the business. And he was shocked by that. How could somebody not do that? But you know what? It's amazing how many people don't. So it's amazing just treating people with respect. It's amazing what can happen.
Yeah. I think you said something important in there that I think is really pertinent to the subject. And that is that if you want perfect customers, you have to have the guts to get rid of the ones that aren't. To really look, we're all servicing customers right now that we shouldn't be servicing. And we know that because the day that we have to deal with them, we don't want to deal with them. It's always a hassle. We've all landed that piece of business that was more trouble on the back end, but you only have capacity for X amount of customers. So if you want to attract more perfect customers, you have to create the room in your portfolio to do that. And that is courage to let go of the ones that aren't a good fit.
Wow, you just tore the Band-Aid off the wound with that one. Because right now, I think a lot of people have got customers that they're really not good customers, but they're keeping them around because of cash flow. They're keeping them around because it's the only business they have. And I'll tell you what it's doing is, first of all, you're not making money off of them because if they're problem customers, guess what? They are sucking resources out the back end. So you're not making the kind of money that you think you're making. And B, you don't have the ability to spend time with good customers. And I know can be a tough pill to swallow, But over the years, I've had to let go of customers. And you go, but you know what? I always look back and I go, every time I've done that, it was the right decision. It was the right move to make. You get good customers when you hang around with good customers.
Yeah. And when you have the room to invite them in and to take care of them, because you could have perfect customers on your, within your portfolio right now, but you just don't have the time because you're weighed down by other things.
Well, that's so good, because really we don't spend enough time with the best. This is kind of like prospecting. This is where I say so many people get messed up from a prospecting standpoint because they have too many leads. They have too many leads and they can't nurture them. They can't develop them. They can't. And what I say is really what you want to do is you want to have a few really good prospects that you can spend more time with. Kind of the same thing with customers, because I will venture to say that every customer you have where you've landed, there's an ability to expand. There is an ability to expand either with more business from them or by way of referrals or by way of something. But take those good customers, treat them with respect, but know that there's always an ability to expand. And when you expand, you're actually providing them a better service. Don't hold back. Don't hesitate. I can't talk to them about that stuff. I can't talk to them. I feel like I'm pushing. No. If you have the ability to help someone, it's your responsibility to help them.
Yeah. Which also brings up the point that if you want to have perfect customers, you've got to do your research, you've got to do your homework, and you've got to really know them. You've got to really know them at a level that that you're able to help them. You have to understand their industry, you have to understand their business. You've got to have that relationship and the depth of that relationship to really be able then to add advice, add resources, the things that you want to at another level. But if you're not doing the work on the front end, it cracks me up. I mean, 2 times today, I already got somebody to pitch me on LinkedIn. And all I did was accept their connection, and I'm thinking, why would I buy anything from you? I don't even know you. Now, I could be their perfect customer, but they skipped that relationship building step. And that's really key in the perfect customer connection, I think.
There are so many things we can talk about. I'll share one more piece, then we'll need to get into the lightning round. But what's interesting, you talk about the industry. And I'm always amazed at how little information people know about the industries they sell into. If you're not seen as a great expert, if you're not seen as the smarter kid in the room by your customers, I mean, please, you have got to be spending. I just did a video on this. I said, and I'm calling it the 30-day challenge. Take 30 days, 30 minutes a day, and do a deep dive reading and studying and learning about your industry. You do that 30 minutes a day for 30 days, and guess what? You're going to wind up knowing a tremendous amount of additional information, which is going to help you with your customers. Oh, there's so much there. But anyway, time is kind of slipping away, so we should probably jump into the lightning round. The lightning round question: how do I nurture my great customers? Go.
Lightning round. Okay, tip to nurture your great customers is, number 1, find out what's important to them, specific to them, something that they really like. Mark and I have a mutual friend, and I was getting ready to send her something. And the typical thing to send would be flowers, but I know she loves bacon. So I sent bacon, because you need to know your customers or your clients. You need to know what's important and what's valuable to them. It tells them you're listening.
I guess I'm not important to you, Meridith, because I've never received bacon from you, but we'll leave that as a side note. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, hey, here's the whole thing. What do you know about your customer's customer? You nurture great customers. You help develop them by really understanding who are they selling to, who are they serving. The more you know about them, the more valuable they will be to you.
Yeah, and I would add to that you need to understand their competition. What are the markets they're competing in? What are the challenges that they're up against? And where are their opportunities in the marketplace? You need to understand their competition really better than they do.
I'll add, share with them insights that go beyond what you sell. Share with them insights about the industry. Share with them insights I have a number of customers that I will routinely send, well, you and I have worked on a white paper together. I'll send that to customers. And it's amazing how they respect me and they love me for it.
Yeah. I would say open doors for them, try to get them some business, make connections for them, both who can just help to build their network as well as create new opportunities. Show them that you're as invested in growing their business as they are.
Some people will say this is weird, but I love reaching out to my best customers on the weekend. On a Saturday morning, I'll send them an email. I'll send them a link. I'll send them something. And they're shocked that, wait a minute, I'm thinking of, they're saying, Mark is thinking about me on a weekend, but it's amazing the commentary, the comments I get back. It's always positive and they really value it. And they say, hey, we want to keep you around.
Yeah. I would say, remember the day that they started doing business with you and send them a anniversary card on that day. So many of your competitors remember people's birthdays. They remember people's, wedding anniversaries and things. But a really special day to remember is the day that they first did business with you. And if you can do something important around that day, it's going to truly differentiate them and cement just how much the business means to you.
And I'm going to add to that. Do you know what their personal goals are? Do you know what their KPIs are? If you're going to call this a great customer, you better understand what motivates them personally, what's driving them personally. What are they being measured on?
Yeah, that's a great one. I would also add to that is that really, what are you doing to help them stay one step ahead in the marketplace? At least once a year with those customers, you should be sitting down and doing a deep dive. The last contact I always make before the holiday season is that letting them know that first week of January, I'll be reaching out to really make the plan and the strategy of how we can work together in the coming year. I don't ask that as a question. I make it a statement, but it's the time that I really set aside just to get a really good, thorough understanding of where they're headed in the next year. And from there, I can figure out the products and services that I can sell to help them get there.
I love recommending books to them. I love, not the books I write, but the books that other people write and why I think they should do it. I just did that the other day and the customer reached back out to me and said, thank you. It's an excellent book. Why don't you share one more? I'll share one more and then we'll kind of shut things down.
Okay. Solve problems that have nothing to do with you or your product or service. I've had a lot of my clients lately calling saying my team's really struggling with burnout and work-life balance now that we've gone virtual. And that's not my problem. That's not my wheelhouse, but I'm providing tools and resources to help them solve that problem.
You stole that one right out from under me because that's what I was going to end with. But I'll end with this one. Never take that relationship for granted. Because I'll tell you what, when you take a relationship for granted, it's amazing how quickly they'll find somebody else to fill that void. Hey, with that, we need to kind of shut down this episode of Sales Logic. We want to say thank you for listening to Sales Logic this week. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. If something we've said has earned you a single dollar, consider telling a friend about our show. It's how we grow to help you grow. I'm Mark Hunter.
And I'm Meridith Elliott Powell.
Remember, when you sell with confidence and integrity,
uncertainty suddenly becomes your competitive advantage.
And the sale becomes logical. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Most people refer to VanillaSoft as the solution. It's the solution to ensure sales reps make the right number of attempts for every lead across all channels, including email, social, and the phone. It's the solution to serve the rep the next best lead every single time. You need to get your solution at VanillaSoft.com.